Welcome to the Defining Her Story podcast, where we bring together amazing women to discuss hot topics and spotlight the accomplishments of women from all walks of life. In today's episode, we will be talking with 4 incredible women leading in the tech industry today. Our guests include Director of Technology at 8-Bit Studios, Katie Kelly, Product Manager at Amazon Prime Air, Damilola Olutu, Director of Operations at Plus AI, Amisha Vadaliyah, and VP and General Manager with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Hybrid IT Group, Krista Satterwhite. Chidima Ahamneze sat down with the ladies and led a discussion where they share their experiences and perspective of what it's like to be a female working in the tech industry, which includes a bit about their backgrounds, journey to their current roles, successes, failures, and lessons learned. And they help break down any myths that there might be out there about being in the industry, as well as providing advice on how to get into the tech field. So join us in this discussion.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So I'll just introduce myself and then go through some, few housekeeping items, and then we'll just go ahead and start dive into the questions. So thank you so much, ladies, for being here. Welcome, everyone. My name is Chidima Ahamneze. I was born and raised in Nigeria. I did my bachelor's and master's at University of Houston. My bachelor's was in economics and my master's is in finance. I currently work as a financial analyst for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and within Nerdy Girl Success, I am the program coordinator. And I've been with the organization for 2 years now.
Oops.
So just a few housekeeping items. This discussion is going to be recorded, and the replay is going to be made available for members of Nerdy Girl as well as our participants after the event. And for our panelists, we will be using pictures for promotional purposes only by Nerdy Girl Success. So if you don't wish for your image to be displayed, please make sure your camera is off when pictures are being taken. And for our participants, we do have questions prepared for the panelists, and we'll leave some time for questions from the audience at the end. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will relay that to our panelists at the end of the panel discussion. So our purpose of this panel today is to hear our panelists' viewpoint, what it's like to work in the tech industry, hopefully break down any myths we have about working in this industry, and solely to learn as much as we can today. So I will go ahead and introduce the panelists. Give me a second to share my screen as I go through that. And please let me know if you guys can see the panelists, if you can see the screen.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Yep. So first panelist is Katie Kelly. She is the Director of Technology at 8-Bit Studios in Chicago. She's worked in technology space for a little over 20 years, working on everything from writing programs that send faxes to desktop development to web and mobile as well. She's taken some programming classes during her college days while she was studying chemical engineering at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign in the mid-90s. But it wasn't until her first job as a chemical engineer that she realized she could make a career working in tech, writing coding, and have a lot of fun doing it. She enjoys the outdoors, running, reading, and spending time with her husband and 2 kids. Thank you, Katie, for being here. And the next panelist is Damilola Olutu. She is a product manager at Amazon Prime Air, owning technology that is used to enable delivery of packages to customers via drone. Previously, Dami was the finance partner for the same team, defining the business model to allow for cost-competitive scaling of drone delivery. Before joining Amazon, Dami worked in marketing strategy, management consulting, and as a financial advisor. She holds an MBA from University of Chicago School of Business and a BA in economics from Knox College. Dami grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, and now lives and works between Seattle, Washington, and Chicago, Illinois. Outside of work, Dami spends her time mentoring career changes and recording gospel music. Welcome, Dami. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Our next panelist is Krista Sadowik. Krista is the Vice President and General Manager, Synergy and One View for Hewlett Packard Enterprise Hybrid IT Group. In this role, Krista has global operational P&L responsibilities for a multi-billion-dollar business at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Krista is responsible for the development of the business strategy, go-to-market execution, and resource allocation. She has over 20 years of industry experience in product management, marketing research, and sales in the technology and consumer goods industries. She has held numerous positions, including the first product manager on Blade servers, responsible for defining and managing world's best-selling server Blade. Krista also drove a transition into an HPE startup business from a product GTM to a solution GTM team and launched solutions to fit customer needs. Welcome, Krista. Thank you for being here. And our last panelist is Amisha Vadaliyah. She is an East Coast native, currently residing in Silicon Valley, California. She serves as the Director of Operations at Plus.ai, where she's helping to shape the future of autonomous trucking. She previously worked in the renewable energy sector, leading operations at a solar monitoring and data analytics company. Amisha went to the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, where she received a joint degree in international relations and management. In her spare time, she enjoys traveling, running, and Indian dancing. Welcome, Amisha. Thank you for being here. And I will stop sharing my screen so you can all see our wonderful panelists. Okay, so we're gonna get right into the questions. And my first question is for Amisha. So you're working to help shape the future of autonomous trucking. I really haven't heard of self-driving trucks. I have heard of self-driving cars. So this is really cool to me. What are you most excited about for the future of this technology?
Yeah, so trucking in general, let alone self-driving trucks, is not something a lot of us know about. But at the same time, it's really, really important to our overall economy, especially in the United States. So it's like a $600 billion sector, which when I first heard that statistic blew my mind. And it makes up 70% of the goods that we use or consume every single day. But at the same time, truck driving is a very, very difficult position and a dangerous position. And so with long haul truck driving, and that's when the truck driver is spending 1 or more days away from home, they're driving about 100,000 miles per year compared to an average of 15,000 miles per year that we drive in our cars. And so imagine being on the road for 11 plus hours a day, away from your families multiple times a day. There's a lot of fatigue that comes with being a truck driver. And that ends up leading to a lot of unnecessary injuries and fatalities from truck-related accidents. And so the beauty of the autonomous trucking sector is that you have a technology which does not get tired, which does not get distracted, and is able to observe things at a very, very precise level compared to what an average human can do. And so I'm really excited just about, making the space of trucking much safer, and also addressing some shortages that naturally have stemmed from the trucking industry because of how grueling of a job it is.
Thank you. That was very insightful. Damilola, my next question is for you. So you're a product manager for a really cool product, Amazon Prime Air, which is a technology that allows drone delivery of packages. What does it mean to be a product manager for those of us that just have no idea what that means? Can you explain?
Yeah, I definitely didn't really know about the field of product management until a few years ago. I remember when I was graduating college, it was cool to be in investment banking, not so much in tech. But a product manager, if you would, is some people would say it's like the CEO of a product. I don't know if I would call it that. I would say essentially you are the subject matter expert on a particular service or a particular piece of technology that's enabling something. So you think about a customer's perspective and you try to build a product or service that essentially meets those needs. Practically and tactically, it usually means working across different stakeholders to build something and to launch it. You're working with a tech team if it's a software product. You might be working with some hardware engineers if there's a hardware piece of the product. You work with finance on modeling whatever the business, the use cases to make sure that it can actually be profitable. You'll work with marketing on how you'll get whatever your service or your product is in the hands of customers, and ultimately work with operations teams that might have to enable the actual production and manufacturing of whatever product it is. So I think I would think about a product manager as a quarterback more than anything. You know a lot about whatever it is your area is, and you do everything in your power to make sure that the technology or the piece of or whatever it is that you're building gets executed and launched and in the hands of customers. And then you go through this iterative process of continually making it better.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like you sort of touched on how you do have to have like a lot of sort of connection to people working in different parts of the company as well, just to help launch that product. So that's really cool.
Mhm.
And my next question is for Katie. You've been in the industry for quite some time. So what is something of significance you know now about having a career in this industry that you feel you just didn't know back then?
Well, when I started, technology was nowhere near as ubiquitous as it is today. So I think what I didn't know then that I know now is just the amount of opportunity that there really is in the industry. When I, beyond, like I work in software development, but beyond coding, there's so many other roles that people can play, from some of the things that people here have just talked about, to design, user experience. There's just a whole really wide range of opportunity out there. And when I started, I had just no idea that that was the case.
Thank you. And I think that's a very important point you touched on, because like even aside from like, the design or people that work with the user interface aspect of it, within just the tech industry, like you could find yourself in marketing, finance, and different roles just like that are still, in this industry. So that is important to know. And Krista, my question for you, you do have a range of experience in the industry, from sales to marketing to product management. How are you able to make these career transitions successfully? And what advice can you give to the girls that want to have just a variety of careers within the industry like you did?
Okay, so can you guys hear me okay? I know my audio is a little, it's been kind of fading in and out. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. All right. So what I would say is one of the things especially early, I didn't realize is that the opportunities would come your way a lot of times, and you would just have to be open to the opportunity. So what you'll find when you're in the workplace is you'll get to learn, and other people, they'll get to learn you, and people will ask you, hey, would you like to come and try this new area? And one of the things about me is I would always say yes. Yeah, I'll try it. I'll give it a try. I'll give this a try. I'll give that a try. So it wasn't as deliberate. Some people feel like your career is all mapped out in advance. And for some people, that's true. My mom knew she wanted to be a nurse when she got her appendix out when she was 16 years old in the hospital. It was like, hit her like a ton of bricks. This is what I want to do. But most people, it doesn't happen that way. And a lot of people, they'll take steps towards, in the direction of the career they want. And sometimes you make a turn left or right based on what you learn about it. And then in the role I have now, which is a general manager role, which I am responsible for leading a really, really large business.
She's back.
I'm back. I'm so sorry. I think my connection's a little bad. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure when I lost you, but I was just saying that I look at my career now as a collection of experiences, and all the experiences together make me a much stronger employee. I do see something a really, really long time, and then they go for another role, and then they'll look at someone else and say, well, this person has a background that has a lot of other elements to it. And so ultimately it makes you stronger when you get a lot of different experiences in the workplace.
Yeah, definitely agree. My next question would be for Katie. You've been in the industry. That was my first question, sorry. So you did have an initial interest in programming and coding while you were in college, but you didn't realize you could make a career out of it until your first job as a chemical engineer. What made you come to that realization?
Yeah, so at my first job working as a chemical engineer, I worked in basically a factory doing in engineering different chemical processes that they use to manufacture things. And there was just a ton of data that was generated in testing things that went into making the stuff that they made. And they were doing so much stuff on paper. And I was like, if there was a problem and you needed to go research it, you literally had to go into like file cabinets and pull out like sheets that people had written information on, like on the production line, and, compile all that data. And I was like, this is crazy. It takes so long to do anything. And so, I started trying to build databases of information because they really had nothing. They had like an ERP type of system, for ordering and for ordering raw materials and for people placing orders, but they didn't have anything to manage their data. And so that's kind of how I got started. It kind of happened that way. And I was like, wow, this is so fun. So.
Wow, that is so interesting. And did you teach yourself? I know you took some programming courses in college, but then like in the moment, like having to like build that, did you like go back and take courses? Like what helped you?
I mostly taught myself. I did have some foundational knowledge from college, but yeah, I mostly just started to teach myself.
Nice. Thank you. Amisha, my next question is for you. You do have an educational background in international relations and management, which is different from your current role as Director of Operations for a tech company. Would you say your degree has been applicable to your current role? And what advice do you have for the girls that do want a non-technical degree but would like to work in this industry?
Yeah, so actually the origin of that degree is I used to want to be a human rights lawyer and work for an organization like the United Nations. But I spent some time interning on Capitol Hill, and I worked for a think tank, and I quickly realized that the bureaucracy of the political world and the long timelines of the nonprofit sector just weren't for me. So I decided to make basically a polar opposite switch and go to the startup world where things are extremely fast-paced. And then in terms of my degrees, there's definitely a lot of applications with the management degree, just because there's a lot of like practical business things that I learned. So from like a finance perspective, the way corporate structure works, and then also getting kind of a taste of how important corporate culture is in any organization. And then on the IR side, it's definitely much more of an abstract application. But the main thing that taught me was how the countries of the world work from like a regulatory perspective. And it's particularly important just because of how globalized business is these days. And so the two companies that I've worked with, they had a pretty big international presence. And I think most people face that with whatever company they're working with.
Right.
Yeah, and then in terms of advice, so a statistic I was actually really surprised to learn is that 43% of hireable jobs at tech companies are all non-technical. And so they always need, you know, like your sales rep, your accountant, your operations manager. And so if you want to pursue a non-technical degree, but still have an itch to get into the tech sector, I would just encourage you to go for it. But the one important thing is just be ready to learn on the job. Because as is true with most tech adjacent positions, even if you're not physically doing the tech work yourself, you still have to know what's going on. Like from my perspective, there's so much I've learned about the trucking world and all the hardware pieces pieces and components that are going onto the truck that I've never learned in any other walk of life. But it's fun.
Yeah, no, I agree, definitely. I think, yeah, we always have to be open-minded and like, you know, just being able to learn on the job as well. It's very important. So,
Yeah.
my next question is for you. In terms of like technology, whether hat or software, what type do you use to perform your job? And I ask this because I know, you know, a lot of us might be thinking, myself included, that, you know, sometimes you need the most complex tools, you know, to perform a very sort of, you know, technical job. So if you could just let us know what types of, you know, programs you use to perform your job.
Yeah, I think I'll tell you what I use for my role. I think it might be interesting if people are thinking about technology to maybe even hear from a developer or someone who works in tech, if you would. I'm a product manager, and so my role is writing requirements for the product, really, and ensuring that those requirements ultimately um, are developed and executed in a way that actually meets whatever the customer needs are. And so a lot of my job happens in just traditional Microsoft Office suite on Excel and Microsoft Word. And these are all tools that are readily accessible to all of us. And so there isn't kind of a huge learning curve in terms of what types of software I use to do my daily job. I just have a computer. Some of my partners who are hardware engineers have, they work in labs. I don't. You know, since COVID, I've been at home, and this is my workspace. I mean, for road mapping, and a roadmap is essentially a story of, it's a collection of, this is what we're going to do throughout whatever period of time it is. For road mapping, I tend to use I use other software such as Jira, programs like Jira, because I can actually track development against specific requirements. But I think the summary of the long story short is, everything I do is programs that you can download from Google. The learning curve to get up to speed on most of these programs is pretty short. In terms of like actual skill set, I found being a medium intermediate to expert user of Excel really helpful for me personally. I also find it helpful to be able to know how to use SQL. If you can code a little bit, it helps, I think, but not, I would say, not a requirement for a product manager role.
Thank you so much for explaining that, Mala. I think like a lot of girls will find it useful that, you know, you don't necessarily have to have the most technical on your resume and other get into certain roles in the industry. And some of the things you mentioned, like Excel, SQL, I know like there's a lot of online courses to, you know, help you self-teach.
Right.
That, yeah, so thank you. And my next question for Krista. So as someone who's led in various capacities in the industry, what would you say it takes to be a leader in this industry, especially one where there's an underrepresentation of women leaders?
Right. So when it comes to being a leader, a lot of people put a lot of, there's like mystery around being a leader. It's really not that mysterious. It's very similar to leading in a club, an organization, a project at school. Leadership is really all about someone who is willing to step up, kind of have a vision of where people need to go and be able to lead folks to that destination. So it's those people who naturally feel like, okay, this is where we need to go. Let me talk to these people. Let's try to get them to head this direction. So a lot of times it's about, in my early career, I didn't even really think of it as leadership. I just thought of it, we got an assignment, we need to get it done. I'm going to call the meeting. I'm going to, type up a proposal. I'll get everybody in a room. We'll talk about it and we'll get it done. And that's leadership. And early on, I didn't really think of it that way. So some of you may be leading in your church. You may be leading in clubs. You may be leading in school projects. And that all is leadership. And that's really great practice for leading in the workforce. And then when it comes to being one of the few African-American women at work, which I am, it's funny. It's a delicate balance because I try not to let that get to my head. Oprah Winfrey once said that you basically get what you believe you can get. And if you always focus on there's a limit or a glass ceiling, it's like you're going to create that for yourself. So I'm not saying it's easy because I am different than a lot of other people that I work with, but I also see that I've overcome more challenges than other people have overcome, which means that when I encounter a challenge at work, I probably think this isn't that big of a deal. I've been through worse than this. And other people may see those as real blockers. So I would say I have a more resiliency than the person next to me, which serves me well. So I try not to dwell too much on limitations or because of the way I look. And because I'm a woman, and even though those things, I'm not going to sugarcoat, those things do make it more challenging. I just try to find the strength in that because I think everybody knows anybody who's been through something that's challenging is stronger for it. So I try to focus on that part of it and not as much on what the limitation is. And I think today is a historic day, having the first Black female VP be elected. And so that is a ceiling that was shattered today. And from my viewpoint, we can continue to shatter those things. And it's a matter of believing that we can and using the strength that we have, because it's harder sometimes for us than it is for the person next to us.
Thank you so much. That was so detailed. I love how you answered that question, especially the first part. I think a lot of people can relate to the fact that, especially the high school girls or even college students, that, when it comes to leading, it's already, something you've probably done, just in a different setting. So it's just being able to take those skills you already used, be it like a club or an organization, and applying them and refining them obviously as you go in just other roles that you might have in your career. So I love that.
Well, and one other thing I'll say is that when I was young, I used to start little businesses, and then I try to convince my friends in the neighborhood to participate. And I tell them how much money we can make, and hey, we just need to do this, this, and this. And I had to really try to talk them into it. And I feel like I'm doing the same thing now. So sometimes what happens is the things that you're doing, there's sometimes clues, even in high school or earlier, of things that may be a passion for you. Because I do think that your passion chooses you. You don't really choose your passion. So you have to clue into things that you really like, what you like to spend your time doing. And a lot of those things can help lead you to where you should go.
Agreed. So I'll open it up now for just the general questions I have for the panel, so anyone can, answer these. My first one would be, are there any misconceptions, just assumptions people have about being in this industry as a woman that you would like to change? And what advice, if any, do you feel you can give on how we can combat these and just communicate more effectively? And anyone can go first.
I think one thing, one thing that I've noticed is that people will often mistake the empathy and the non-aggressiveness of females as weakness, which I think is a kind of a big pain point in the industry. And so I remember in college, and I would hear about the traditional misogyny you'd face in the corporate world in like the 50s. And I thought, it's not going to be applicable to me because I'm going to be working in a modern, industry. At that time, I knew that I wanted to pursue tech at some point. And unfortunately, that's not the case, right? So there's a lot of men who may identify themselves as feminists. They voted for Hillary in 2016. And so they don't often respond well to feedback that, that might mean that they're still oppressing us in like different ways. And so I think the way to kind of get around that is first encourage females that, the strengths that they're bringing to the table. So being empathetic to, people on their team and not necessarily having to be the loudest voice in the room to be heard is important. And that's a strength in and of its own right. And I actually think that a lot of females that I work with, they have a tendency to listen and understand before they act. And I think that really calls for stable leadership, which is awesome. And I think how to get around, some of the biases that women face in the workforce is to hire more females. The more women that we have in all levels of an organization, the less this bias is going to affect how women are treated and promoted within the organization.
Agreed. Thank you so much. Anyone else want to take a bite at the question?
Yeah, I think Amisha said pretty much what I was thinking. You don't have to go and act like a man.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people think that that's what you need to do to get ahead, but you don't. And in fact, it tends to work more to your advantage not to.
Yeah, agreed. Be yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, and can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I'll say about being yourself is what I've noticed is that people that aren't comfortable being themselves, what will happen is people won't be able to relate to you. They probably won't even know why. There'll be kind of an invisible wall between you and that person. And it makes people uncomfortable. It means that you're not going to connect as much. And when it comes to work and achieving things in your career, it's about the relationships you can build with people. And when you're not yourself, it comes across, and people they can't put their finger on it, but they don't feel like they know you. So bringing your interests and hobbies and your personality to work is actually a really good thing and can help you stand out and help you connect with people.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing I would add to that, and maybe it's even sort of a counter. It is a little bit of a counter and a balance, right? Because I think when we're earlier in our career, it can feel harder to present your full self at work when you're worried or you're concerned that doing so will actually make it a little bit more difficult for you to relate with people, or for you to perhaps fit into the culture. And the culture isn't necessarily, sometimes the culture is in how people speak in meetings, what language people use in meetings. It's how documents are written. It's how people wear their hair. It's what people eat at lunch and what happy hours look like, and all of those non-work but work-ish related things, places where community is being built at work. I think sometimes it can be really hard to bring your full self to that. My encouragement would be to do it anyway and bring yourself in little bits and pieces. I can speak for myself. When I when I first started working in corporate, I would not wear my hair natural. It seems like a small thing, but it was a big deal for me. My hair was always straight. and always back in a bun. And over time, I've kind of gotten to the point now where I'll wear my locks and I'll wear my fros. And I think that the work environment is adjusting. But what I found is what you make normal, people will start to think is normal. And some of these things are in our heads and some of them are not, but it's okay for people to be uncomfortable by the fact that maybe you speak loudly and or you're actually a little bit quiet. That it's okay for the specific things that make you who you are to make people feel uncomfortable as long as it's not, you're not being disrespectful. I think it's fine for your coworkers to have to adjust, especially when you're a person of color or you're a minority. It's fine for them to have to adjust how they talk, how they speak, how they listen, how they write to what actually works for you too.
Agreed. I'm so sorry. My Wi-Fi connection just kicked me out, so I had to join back in. So another question, I really don't think any successful person, made it alone. So how can, one ensure that they do have the right support and people around them in general just to be successful?
Maybe I can go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, I can start. I think to some degree, you really have to seek it out. You need to sort of seek out your people that you're comfortable with and that you think will be able to support you. So, look for opportunities, look for people that, when you're very first starting, maybe just look to connect with people that maybe have, a few common interests and just continue to keep, trying to, I don't want to say network, but just connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think paying attention in call it meetings or panels and things like that, and sort of picking up on people whose personalities you just think you're going to jive with, or who speak about a life experience that you can relate to or have a common interest, and then following up with those people has been a way that I've built connection in different environments that I've been in. And being consistent, I think, is key. I've also found that having something to add to the table helps. If you like, you might not be in a position to actually help someone get a job, as an example, but you can offer a piece of insight, to offer a connection to someone else. And I think being conscious of the fact that there is always something to offer, even if it's just insight, or even if it's company, or even if it's a listening ear, and offering whatever that is up, the relationships, that reciprocity typically comes back.
And I would also say that when it comes to your work, a lot of times what will happen is your work will speak for you. Similar to if you're on a project with somebody, let's just say you have a project in school and you like somebody personally and it's like, oh, they're fun, they're, a laugh. But if they're not maybe the person you would want to be paired with, if your grade depended on it, that's probably not the person you're going to select if you have an important project. Work isn't that much different. A lot of times your work, you won't even realize it, but once you do a really good job, people see that. People will actually kind of gravitate towards you, want to work on projects with you. So I think there's a social element that you were just talking about, and trying to get relationships with people. But there's also this performance element that draws people, and you start getting recruited in to help out with this, or you're welcome into this room, this team, because they have respect for the work that you have, the skill set you have, all of those things. But it's very similar to school. It's like you got the fun people that you want to be around, and then if your grade depends on it, then you got the other group of people that potentially, and they may not be the same person. So I would say that's another element of that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I always say that the working world is just like one big high school group project. And,
Without as much drama, I would say. Most of the time.
Yeah, and it's really important, like, because you're going to be exposed to so many different people, and especially if you are coming in, and you can present yourself as somebody who's a strong worker, who's a team player. There's going to be a lot of folks who want to be in your circle, and so keep in mind as you're cultivating the people who are going to be part of, the group that's going to get you to that next level. It's important to set boundaries. And I think that's something that I had a very hard time doing in high school, because you just want everyone to like you. You don't want to stir the pot at all. But I think with how limited your can be, both in a professional sense and also in your personal life, you want to make sure that the relationships that you're watering are bearing fruit back to you.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. We have a lot of questions actually coming in the chat and in the question section. So I'm just going to dive into those and see how many we could get through. So this one, Reagan is asking Amisha, how soon do you think the autonomous trucks will be used?
Good question. So there's 5 levels of autonomous trucking. Without getting too into the weeds of things, most autonomous trucks and vehicles that you see on the road today are level 2. So that means that there's still a safety driver behind the wheel at all times. And for trucks, we take it one step further. And so we have what we call a vehicle operations specialist inside the cab as well, who's responsible for making sure that the system is safe, that the driver doesn't get distracted. And it's basically just like an added safety mechanism. And so when people think of like fully autonomous vehicles, when there's no human in the cab, I think that's going to be at least like 5 to 10 years out. And the way that we kind of look at it as my company, because we're very, very safety centric, is that there's no safe way of doing that until you collect billions and billions of real world miles that's able to prove that your technology is solvent. And because even now, right, like when you look at Tesla, for example, right, the Tesla autonomous system is operating with like 99.9% accuracy, but that 0.1% of cases when the system sees something that it hasn't seen before or is doing something wrong can really result in a very dangerous situation and sometimes even a fatality. Mm-hmm. So I think until we get to that, billions and billions of miles point, which I think is going to take 5 to 10 years, it's not safe for autonomous the driver.
Okay, thank you. And I think that answered one of the questions that was like a follow-up, and they were asking if it was going to replace, the human jobs or not. But another question is, did you ever have an issue with public speaking? And if so, how did you overcome it? And this is for all the panelists.
I would say that most people are nervous about public speaking. And my strategies, I'll just tell you, I try to enjoy myself up there. I feel like you can feel it when somebody's ready to just run off the stage. It's like it's uncomfortable for you. It's uncomfortable for them. They're miserable. I took a lot of speech classes where they talked a lot about what to do with your hands and where you should be looking and all the mechanics. And really, it's more comfortable to be comfortable yourself instead of worrying about everything every second, because you really want to feel like you're enjoying it, because that will emote to the audience. And then also focus on the message more than yourself. That's the other thing that's helped. And then the final one is, no matter what happens, it'll be over in 30 minutes, an hour, whatever. It's like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? It's going to be over and that's it. So, but those are my ways of getting around it. I present a lot. So I have to get over it. I've done it, I think it was probably a group of about 3,000 people. And my knees felt like Jello when I was walking up on the stage, and it's just like you just try to focus on the message and enjoying it and being as prepared as possible. That's key, because if you really don't know what you're going to say or what the next thing that comes up, then you really could crumble. So you have to feel very prepared. I practice a lot. I practice in the mirror. I'll record myself, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I would just piggyback and echo exactly that. I think the preparation for me personally is the biggest thing. I had a teacher, a voice teacher, that had said before, your recitals or your performances are never greater than 85% of your best rehearsal. And so the more prepared you are, the easier it is to improvise and therefore to kind of relax. You're not rehearsing the speech you forgot to actually imbibe, as opposed to just memorize last minute the night before. And I think also remembering that it's people in the audience, and so they're people that you can connect with, um, and you're there because you have something that's important to say, and just focus on that. But the preparation is really key.
Yeah. Yeah, I would echo that as well. I think with public speaking, when somebody gets kind of flubbed up one time, a lot of times that nervousness tends to just go through their entire speech, and I think it messes people up. But I look at President Obama, right, who I think is one of the greatest speakers I've probably seen throughout my lifetime. And he oftentimes will have pauses. He says, and so don't let it mess you up. If you don't say one line like you were planning to do it, that's fine. Just brush it off and keep going. Also, personally, I feel that I get jumbled a lot if I try to write out the speech that I want to do verbatim. So instead, try to bullet point things. So just have general things that you want to talk about and spark your memory of what you want to say without, the fear of exact line, exactly how you had written it out.
All righty. Another question is, what is one thing that you've done in your career that you believe has helped you the most? And this is for all the panelists as well.
In my case, as a developer, I think just being motivated to learn things, whether it's teaching yourself or seeking out people that can help you, or mediums that can help you learn things. I think just being open to always learning new things, and being eager to learn new things has probably helped me the most.
For me, I would say I started doing this in college, but I started saying to myself, I'm just going to give it a shot and see what happens. So when I was I wanted to get my MBA, and I just wasn't sure. I didn't have much work experience. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to apply, give it a shot, see what happens. And I got in. And then when I bought my first house, like, oh, I really don't have much money. My credit history is not very long, but I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens. I'm like, they at least have to tell me what I need to fix for next time. And so I gave it a shot and I got the house. So I did that with jobs too. I've been with HPE for 23 years. I've had multiple jobs, but I never actually proactively went after any job. Somebody came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, would you want to do this? And I'm like, hey, I'll give it a shot and see what happens. So that would be my advice. Give something a shot, see what happens. A lot of times you learn from it, and then you could see what you might need to fix so that next time, even if it doesn't work out, next time it does.
Yeah, for me, I think it's diligence. And so, especially in the beginning of my career, when I was kind of trying to find my place within the organizations I was in, to just present myself as somebody who's always going to take the task from start to completion, regardless of a time on a clock or the number of days I've allocated to it, has really helped me. And so I think for a lot of people, I became the go-to person. And so that kind of introduces another conversation of making sure you set boundaries and you're not always saying yes. But it did really help me build a network of folks. And so the job that I currently have, I got because of the C-suite folks per individual at my last company saw the work that I did and brought me over to this company. And so, yeah, it really just helps to always give, your 100%.
Yeah. And I think one thing that has always helped me and continues to help me is asking for feedback, when whether that's like on an actual project, getting things reviewed by multiple different people, or on a presentation, or even on a, hey, how did I handle that particular contentious situation? What do you think I could have done differently? And not every feedback needs to be taken, but constantly asking, I think has helped people that work around me get more practiced and honest about how real they'll get with me, and that has only helped me be better.
Mhm. Thank you. I think I'll just do this one last question so we can wrap up. And this one, I think, is something, we've all experienced and been affected one way or the other this year. And the question is, how has COVID affected your respected industries, job role, and just tech world as a whole?
Yeah, for me, it has affected how many people are buying the compute that we sell. And it's because a lot of our customers we're selling to, their business has slowed down. So that means projects have slowed down. So the numbers, not as much as maybe, travel or retail got hit, but we got hit because our customers aren't buying as much. So that's different. And then, of course, we're all working remote, and I'm used to going in an office every day. So that's been an adjustment. And so that's basically at a bit of a business hit. And then, of course, we're not going into work, which is a work social change for me because I'm used to seeing people every day.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be a surprise to anyone on this call, but because of COVID, Amazon has been extremely busy, both in the actual delivery of packages, but also in the delivery of food and groceries. And I had spent such a long time with the drone delivery team, and we're in a more R&D environment that isn't so much affected by things, like the normal business operations of the company. But because of how constrained Amazon was and all the other sides, from product managers and software developers, a bunch of us got tapped from other projects and asked to come lead and solve issues that we were having that were directly affecting customers. Like, how do I get my food faster without, safely? And so over the last couple months, I actually transitioned out of the drone delivery team over to Fresh, which is the grocery business, and helping solve some of those issues. And so for me, like, it's the COVID has meant a new job in the last few weeks. It's also on a positive, it's giving me an opportunity to work from where I actually want to be. I've been in Seattle for 3 years and recently moved back to Chicago, which feels a lot more like home. And I can do that because everyone's working remotely.
Yeah, from my side, so trucking is deemed essential business. And so even though we're a tech company and we deemed that it was not essential for us to be in play at the start of the pandemic when a lot of businesses were shutting down, a lot of the customers that we work with said, they were kind of confused why we were deciding to put an end to operations. And so that was a difficult conversation to have with some customers. And then we were shut down for 3 months of operation. And then when the county that we operate in decided to go back to work, it was a lot of money that went into it. So we were staying up late at night, all through the organization, trying to find Clorox wipes, right? Trying to, as soon as they dropped on Target or Amazon. And then we also were trying to just keep up with the CDC was saying. So, what is the incubation period if there's a potential exposure case? What does that mean for the testing policies that we have? We have very in-depth cleaning procedures at the warehouse. So all of our trucks are cleaned at least 4 times every day or whenever the trucks are changed in hand. But the one point of difficulty is that the way that our safety case is structured, we require 2 people to be in the vehicle at all times. And so that's kind of, we went through a bunch of potential solutions of maybe having a plastic barrier between the passenger side and the driver's side. but deemed that would be another safety concern because of the glare that would come from it. And so it's been kind of a lot of like thinking on your feet, trying to see how to react to a pandemic, which I've obviously never had any experience with in my lifetime. And then also the remote work, I think, has been a challenge for me personally because I'm a people person and I need to be around white noise, I think, to be effective. And so it was quite the adjustment period in the beginning.
Yeah, I think my experience is kind of similar to what others have said. You know, our business has definitely taken a bit of a hit, mainly because our clients have taken hits. But, you know, as a manager of a team, I was very used to connecting with people in person, just walking around the office and, hey, how's it going? And how was, you know, whatever. And now I have to make a lot more of an effort to reach out to people and see how they're doing and that type of thing. And then, as you just saw, children entering my room whenever they want to.
No, and I think that's a good note for us to end.
That was really hilarious timing.
Yeah,
That's a perfect ending. We're a little over time. But I just want to say thank you so much, ladies, for taking time out of your Saturday to be a part of this event. I think it's been very insightful. I have learned a few things myself, and I hope, you know, everyone in the audience was able to pick up one or two gems. Just, you know, being yourself, no matter where you are at, and, you know, always trying to make those connections because you never know who's going to be part of your journey. And genuine connections is what I've really heard. You know, based on just like common interests. So that is very important. And, you know, something that stuck out to me is even through the challenges, just like, you know, focusing on how that has made you better, stronger as a person. And, you know, focusing on what you do have to offer and, you know, bring to the table as opposed to like your weaknesses or things that make you feel insecure. So I think you ladies said a lot of very, you know, meaningful things. So I hope everyone is able to take, you know, something out of our discussion today. And I would also encourage our attendees to, you know, connect with our panelists on LinkedIn. You know, we're in a virtual world now, so that's something I'll always encourage. And as for what's coming next, I just want to let the attendees know that one of our workshop presenters had an emergency this morning. So she will be unable to present her workshop. If you were planning on participating in the Capture the Flag workshop, we would be rescheduling that for another date in the future. So information will be sent out regarding that. There are still 4 other workshops, amazing workshops that you can attend. And for the questions we're unable to answer during this time from the attendees, we'll try to answer that and get out the responses. So we do have the college chat next up with Sophia. I'm going to put the Zoom link for that in the chat. And she'll be sharing a little bit about the future of tech and what she's studying in college right now, which is super cool, computational neuroscience. So at the end of her session, there would be, you know, a link where you could go ahead and pick the career talks you'd like to attend, which is what will come up after her session. And I have just dropped the link for the Zoom for Sophia's chat next up. So we have come to the end of this discussion. Thank you so much, ladies. This was so fun for me. So you guys have a good rest of your weekend. And yeah, we will be in touch. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
everyone.
That was great.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Defining Her Story podcast. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and review. These help us get found by amazing listeners just like you. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, let us know. Just send us a text at 954-637-3475. You can also head on over to nerdygirlsuccess.com to see what events we have coming up and to see about bringing them to your area. Thank you to our sponsors of this podcast, Wooshka and WeVideo. Music for this podcast provided by bensounds.com.